Ready to light that fire by doing the things that make you come alive? Welcome to Health Raisers, a podcast for wise women. I'm your host, Dr. Nadine. I left a soul-crushing medical career full of bad news and evolved into a joyful health integration coach, helping hundreds of women find their healthy. You're more than your dress size. Stop putting up with toxic relationships, swallowing your true emotions, and sacrificing your mental health. Stop using your body as a battlefield. You're always giving. You deserve to put yourself first, not just for your sake, but for those you love. Wise women, let's make ourselves a priority right now. It's time to raise some health together. Last month, we celebrated the late Dr. Wallace Nichols and his amazing work on the health benefits of water by re-releasing my conversation with him on the YOGI MD podcast. I am so lucky that I got to spend time with him and to share it with you, my audience. If you missed that episode, I highly encourage you to check out his inspiring discussion on the transformative power of water. And I am thrilled to continue this engaging theme with another special re-release featuring Aqua Yoga therapist, Ayurvedic health educator, author, and home funeral guide Camella Nair. I had the privilege and the joy of learning how to teach Aqua Yoga from Camella many years ago, and I would not be the teacher that I am celebrating yoga in the water with my beloved students today if it weren't for her. Thank you, Camella. And now, enjoy as we explore this wonderful theme, highlighting the myriad benefits of practicing yoga in the water.
Well, I guess I've always been a little bit of a mermaid. Being near the water, by the water, has always been my Zen place. You know, some people like being near woods, some people like mountains, some people like the cities, so I hear. You know, for some people, Chicago might be the place to be. But I mean, every morning when I shower, I give thanks because, you know, how luxurious to have warm water on your body. Yeah, I did a lot of, yoga myself in the water without telling anyone and everything. I did synchronized swimming. I was not very good at it at all as a child. And when I was approached by a local YMCA to consider teaching yoga for very diverse populations in the water, I was kind of a little bit hesitant because the yoga world, I think at that time, 20 odd years ago, was not really understanding of about, anything other than vinyasa or, stuff. And so I kept it quiet for a very long time. It was almost like a secret that I had with the students. I'd talked to other yoga teachers about what I was doing, and they looked at me like I was just talking a foreign language. And I said, well, what about all these people who would never go to your yoga class on land? They would never do it because the perception is that you have to be a certain body type anyway and a certain age to do yoga. I said, and these people are already in the water doing stuff. And how fantastic to give them the opportunity of a mindful practice. It's a way of getting people to break down the barriers of what they think a yoga class should be about. A lot of it is fun. People come and there's a warm welcome. People smile at one another. There's more interaction, I think, in the water than there is in a class on land. On land, you're kind of just keeping on your sticky mat and you don't really look around. You're not really looking around and engaging with everyone else. And very often you can leave the class and you've worked your body, but there's been no connection. Not all classes. I find that studios can be a little bit more stark in a lot of instances. At least that's my experience. And YMCAs tend to be a little, or organizations like that, community centers, can tend to be, more friendly, more accepting. If you have a child, for example, that needs to be in childcare, you need to leave the class 10 minutes early, or God forbid you come into the class 10 minutes late, that's fine. They're coming because they need to be there.
And now, here's an ad from our sponsor. In the mood for coffee, tea, yummy pastries, or cool swag? My friends at Infusco have got you covered. Infusco Coffee Roasters is a cozy neighborhood coffee joint in Sawyer and St. Joseph, Michigan. Infusco stands for a healthy community. They craft irresistible seasonal drinks, sourcing local artisans' products. The flavors shine from quality ingredients, and their beans are roasted on site. They do not hide behind tons of sugar. Every time I go, I'm greeted by my name with a smile. Bad service is just non-existent. It feels like stepping into a friend's living room. They keep it personal. Old school, eclectic coffee mugs on the wall, fun merch, including stickers designed by artists, t-shirts, and sweatshirts. It's the perfect place to get to know your neighbors and chat with tourists. You will always find people deep in conversation. Special events keep it fresh. Community, health, the heart of Sawyer. That's Infusco. I hope to meet you there. So what are the benefits of practicing yoga in the water?
God, how long do we have? It's huge. I mean, the only thing we can be sure of in life is change. And we live in a gravitational field where accidents happen or degeneration or both. And it's very, very difficult to remain happy in your body without any aches and pains. And if you have a mindful practice, a meditation practice, and your body is in pain, you cannot meditate. I've tried it. It does not work. When you step out of the gravitational field, for many, many people who are in pain, chronic pain, limited in motion and so forth, going into the water, it's just, if you could prescribe a pill as a doctor to reduce pain, then stepping into the water would be kind of like that. Obviously, it's the buoyancy is wonderful. The hydrostatic pressure kind of hugs things in. So it's wonderful because that additional pressure gives us more resistance to improve our breathing. And working with people, especially seniors or people who've never done yoga before, trying to get them to change their breathing habits on land can be quite difficult, quite challenging. And how much longer have they got, to try to refine that? And so being in the water tends to make it much easier. You can do a little bit of vinyasa, a little bit of flow, using the resistance of the water to create drag, which helps them to improve their proprioception. And kind of means, where the hell is my body in space? And that, as we get older and more feeble, is going to help us hopefully bounce when we fall over or fall a little bit differently, or not fear falling and walk, like an Egyptian, grounding down through the heels rather than shunting forwards and pushing the chin forwards. So reduces edema, the swelling, and that can happen, in the legs. People with fibromyalgia, pregnant ladies in particular, a lovely place for them to be in the water. Arthritis, small movements, but keeping them moving, because again and again, if they're in pain, as they very often are with arthritis and fibromyalgia, they don't really want to move, but they have to move. And being in the water tends to be more sympathetic and supportive of them. Probably as the water creates that space around the joints, you can expect about 30% more range of motion typically. And with the water resistance, it gives people an opportunity to do more aerobic type stuff in the water, whereas they might skip that on land, or it might be boring. I mean, I don't know about you, but my knees I've never been a jogger. My knees don't like jogging. I had to give up tennis. Being in the water, you can do all that. You can do the aerobic stuff as well. And, and that's very often how I'll introduce, a bit of yoga into some more aerobic-y type stuff as well and mix it a little bit. Prehab, going in for operations and trying to work on stabilizing yourself and preparing yourself emotionally and mentally for the surgery, I think is excellent. And a lot of people, just because of the nature of their injury and stuff, they come into the water anyway. They're prehabbing, but they don't realize that's what they're doing. And that's great because it gets their mind in the right place. And then, of course, on the other end of the spectrum, it's the rehab, getting back into your daily life again, and rehabbing in the water. And I think all of the, all the major football teams and stuff, they've got an aquatic protocol. So when they do something crazy, they're actually training in the water as well as rehabbing. And then they can bounce back and do whatever sport it is they do on land. It's a non-judgmental type of environment, I think, particularly, even though you're in a bathing suit and who knows, you could still be top to toe in material. But it tends to be quite egoless. I mean, who cares if you can hold a pose for, a long time? In the water, it doesn't really matter quite so much. It's just much more relaxed. It's just much more conducive and accepting of different bodies, different abilities. And so, and I think we try to keep it simple. We make it fun. You probably remember that from your training. That was one of Kriyananda's main teachings, actually. And don't take yoga so seriously, but take yourself seriously and kind of figure out what works best for you. Yeah, the art of relaxation, I think, is a big part of it. If we're going to try to change the way that we breathe, then we have to be able to relax first. And so being in the water.
How would you describe yoga as a way of life and not just a physical practice?
I remember probably about 10, 12 years ago now, a very close student, she'd been with me for some years, and she said, "How many times do you practice yoga a week?" And I kind of had to think about that. It's nice when you have students and they ask you questions, because sometimes you don't know what you think unless they ask you, which is the value, obviously, of being a teacher. And I thought about it for a while, and I said, you know what? I don't really think about how many times I practice yoga. What I think about is, every breath I'm breathing. I feel like my practice is my life. If I'm sitting at the computer working and I notice that I'm crossing my legs or sitting in a weird way, or, maybe reading a book or standing in a queue at, Whole Foods or something like that, I try to think about it being my life and not just about how many times I practice the physical discipline, because that is just such a small part of that practice, really. Happiness is a byproduct of a life well lived, not necessarily how much stuff you have or how much money you have. And that's certainly been true. I mean, I've had to simplify my life and make sacrifices, I guess, along the way, because I did want this lifestyle of living yoga and not just earning lots of money and buying stuff. And that doesn't excite me at all. Although, don't get me wrong, money, when you need money to buy organic, you need money to go on retreat and stuff like that. But, there are no sad saints. And, becoming more content with our life, whatever life throws at us, has to be a big part of that. Are you allowing people to push your buttons? Maybe you could learn to respond rather than react. And that does change everything. It does change everything. We don't have that same sense of anxiety or loss of control, because that's not very attractive. And it's not about you have to be a vegan or a vegetarian. We're all different. It's just about interacting with life outside of ourselves and realizing that we're such a small speck in the big order of things. And I think if we have a connection to nature or to God or whatever it is that you call it, something that's more galactic than we are, that really kind of puts everything into perspective. The spiritual life is not different from the life of householders as we are. It kind of all has to come together. You can't just do yoga and be lovely and smiley and helpful when you're doing your yoga and then, you flip someone off at the traffic light. It's just, how are you living? How are you living your life? That really, to me, is what yoga's about. Not what poses you can do or for how long, but just how are you as a person? How are you contributing to the world?
Well, this is a perfect place to ask this question. What is your personal definition of what it means to be healthy?
To be healthy, to have a life well lived, to be able to go to bed each night and not beat yourself up about the things that you might have done a little bit better, to recognize that tomorrow's another day, and just recognizing we've probably done as much as we possibly could do. If we go to bed and leave a sink of dirty dishes, then maybe next time we're going to wash the dishes before we go to bed. It's just like saying, well, I'm going to meditate now and the house is a mess. It's not really possible, especially for women, because we think about so many different things at once. So I get the vacuum cleaner out very often, have a quick flick around, and then I can go, okay, that's enough. I know that there's other things to be done, but I've done as much as I can do now to dedicate some time to just sit and, and be quiet. Life is precious, and being in the now is the strongest place. If we continue talking about yoga, trying to improve our life, reading good books, putting, good food in our body, trying not to, get stuck into the news too much and what's going on there and becoming over-emotional about that. If people who are listening haven't tried yoga before, maybe being in the water would appeal to them. Maybe chair yoga would appeal to them. But, we're starting to get so much in terms of research about the benefits of yoga and meditation. I think it would be foolish of people not to consider it and just be open to something that may actually help. Or get in the shower and just be more mindful of being in the warm water and the joy that can bring, because it can take you temporarily out of this pain and tightness in the body, and maybe then just sit down afterwards and just slow down your breathing. So you're not necessarily doing yoga as you would think about doing yoga, but you're just treating yourself and respecting yourself and recognizing, my goodness, if I do this, I feel like this. So you're becoming your own advocate of something that's good for you. And I think that's empowering, actually. I really do. And then in time, when you feel like you're strong enough to do that, by Jove, you might do some of that chair yoga. You might step into, water to do yoga and pick that up again. Or you might get your yoga mat out and do a few things, a little bit of stretching. So it's all by increments. It's just like we forget again as we get older. And age is nothing that we should be frightened of.
Wise women, move from last place to first place in your life. Stop using your body as a battlefield. Let's raise health together with a customized health plan just for you. Contact me at npkhealthintegration.com. Thanks for listening. See you next time.